This is your typical old stone farmhouse. It has a swing, a cat, and maybe a ghost or two. Tonight we will be searching for the ghost that haunts this house with two experienced ghost hunters, Ron and Nancy Stallings. To many people, ghosts are simply figments of the imagination, but to Nancy and Ron, they are quite real.
I didn't always believe in ghosts. In fact, until we moved into the old house that we bought, I really never gave it much thought about ghosts and was always brought up that there was no such thing, which I found out after living in the house a year and a half that we soon had to change our ideas.
In 1965, the Stallings bought this old house. For the first few years, life in their new house was just fine. Then late one night, they were awakened by the sound of their 9-year-old son screaming.
He lets out a scream, and Nancy and I look up the stairs, and on the landing, Alan is elevated off the floor. Nothing that we could see was holding him, and he's thrown down the stairs and crashes through the gate. Somehow or other, he should have really been injured really bad, but he wasn't.
Something in the house had attacked their son, and not long after that, it struck again, this time at their 7-year-old daughter, Deborah.
She woke up in the middle of the night screaming. I ran into her bedroom to find it, and I know this sounds like baloney. Her bed was elevated off of the floor. The mattress was twisted over top of her. It took all of my strength to pull her from the mattress. I got her out, and the bed crashed down the floor.
They could hardly believe what was happening to them. The house of their dreams had suddenly become a haunted nightmare.
You know, everybody said there's no such thing as ghosts. And we didn't even, think about ghosts. And then all of this started happening. We were very much frightened. We tried to move. I don't know how many times we tried to move, and it seemed like we couldn't sell the house.
And we had all our money tied up in this house, so we were trapped. We couldn't move. We had 7 children, and it was just me working.
So we were stuck there for 10 years.
For 10 long years, they tried everything, but they could not get rid of the spirits. They even had the house blessed, but nothing helped. In desperation, they contacted Dr. Hans Holzer, a well-known investigator of haunted houses. Dr. Holzer visited the house and found it was haunted by the ghosts of Confederate soldiers who had died there in the Civil War. For the past 7 years, they have investigated hauntings in and around Maryland, and they have taken thousands of photographs like these. Under close observation and controlled conditions, they have successfully obtained photographs and what may be the voices of spirits on tape. Last year, they investigated this 250-year-old mansion, and under the supervision of a television crew, they got this mysterious image of what seems to be a woman in an evening gown.
It's not a business. I work a regular job like anyone else. It's a hobby with us, and we're trying to find out answers.
Their quest for answers has led them here to a 280-year-old farmhouse in the Maryland countryside. The owners of the house believe they have heard the footsteps of a ghost walking in the upstairs hallway. Under close observation and using film which we have provided, Ron will attempt to photograph the ghost, and Nancy will try to record the voices of spirits using equipment we have given her. During the 10 years they lived in a haunted house, Nancy developed the uncanny ability to detect the presence of spirits, something she says is very similar to the feeling you get when you know you're being watched. With her tape recorder rolling, Nancy enters one of the bedrooms. There she detects a very strong presence, and Ron takes several photographs.
I'm trying to really prove to people, too, truthfully, like myself, that, hey, we do live after death. Something happens to us. We go on.
By the end of the night, Ron has taken more than 30 photographs. When they are developed, however, they show nothing unusual. But they did pick up this strange voice on one of the tapes that says, "Do you want to talk?
Do you want to talk? Do you want to talk?"
Is this the voice of a ghost that haunts this house? Sometimes it seems you were left with more questions than answers.
We're searching for answers, and every time we think we've found it, something new comes up, and we find how much we don't know.
Do you want to talk?
Strange paranormal events at this toy store have been linked to a hired hand named Janne Johansson. He worked for a farmer and fell deeply in love with his daughter, but the feeling was not mutual. But Johnny waited, always hoping she would learn to love him. One day, while chopping wood, Johnny cut his leg. He tried to make it back to the farm, but he bled to death. He died on the site of this toy store over 100 years ago. And it's Johnny, they say, who today haunts the back rooms and aisles of this toy store, still waiting for his love. Since the beginnings of civilization, man has had an almost unquestioned interest in the hereafter. Are there ghosts? Well, if in fact there are, perhaps we have immortality. And if in fact we could prove there are ghosts, perhaps we could understand that there is life after death.
A ghost is a dead guy, perhaps the spirit of someone who is hanging around after the body has died.
Lloyd Auerbach is a professor of parapsychology and one of the country's leading experts in the areas of apparitions, hauntings, and poltergeists. Lloyd will be investigating the events at the Sunnyvale, California Toys R Us. Lloyd has never seen a ghost himself, even though he's personally investigated hundreds of cases, from a black night that haunted a suburban home to a husband who refused to die. Tonight, Lloyd will try to explain the unexplainable.
It's been going on for at least 6 years now. Apparently, toys have been dislodging themselves from shelves, occasionally floating across the room, and an occasional report of a wispy white figure that is passing through the store. These are coming from a lot of the or have come from a lot of the employees. However, no extensive investigation by a scientific team has ever taken place.
Investigations of ghosts generally take three forms. Poltergeists, involving movement of objects; hauntings, where a ghost is part of a reoccurring event but prompts no contact; and apparitions, which are true ghosts that can be seen, smelled, and even spoken to. Lloyd informs me that at the Toys R Us event, all three were involved. The first step in any investigation is to talk to witnesses.
I can't explain it. I know I feel that someone's calling me. I hear my name, and when I turn around, there's no one there.
There was no one around, and all of a sudden I just heard all this crash bang. Everything falls over. 2 gondolas fell over, and the light fixture broke in half.
I happened to notice several occurrences of merchandise sitting on the floor. And it wasn't just the fact that it was loose pieces sitting on the floor, they were stacked.
I don't believe in ghosts, but I know there's something strange going on in here.
The strongest evidence to date that a ghost might indeed haunt the store is in the form of photographs taken by Bill Tidwell. The photographs were taken during a seance recently held at the store. This photo reveals nothing. 2 seconds later, a shot of the same area was taken. This infrared photo clearly shows a figure. Infrared is sensitive to heat and energy. Bill will be taking photos for us tonight.
I still don't necessarily believe in ghosts, but I cannot explain this figure at all.
Lloyd's conclusion so far was that Janne Johansson is a combination of overactive imaginations and various practical jokes. In addition, tonight's photos revealed nothing.
There's a reason for me to question what's going on here. I can't say for certain that people are imagining things or that they're conjuring up a subconscious image for themselves in all these cases. There seems to be something that people are experiencing around the world, whether it's in terms of ghosts or other sorts of psychic experiences, that needs explaining.
Tellers here at the Bank of Baltimore, counting out the money. One of the most famous bank robbers of all time was a guy named Willie Sutton, robbed banks back in the 1930s, and he was always getting caught, too. Finally, a reporter asked him, "Mr. Sutton, why do you rob banks?" He said, "Son, that's where they keep the money." Probably the most famous gangster of that era, though, was John Dillinger. He was public enemy number 1, finally shot dead by the FBI in 1934 outside a movie cinema. Or was he? Some people say they still see his ghost.
SOB Speakeasy is a restaurant in Crown Point, Indiana, about 50 miles south of Chicago. What makes it unique is that it was originally part of the Crown Point Jail. In 1934, the jail was the home of John Dillinger, public enemy number 1. While a squadron of guards patrolled the grounds, he sat in his cell planning his escape. After more than 50 years, it is said that his ghost still haunts the abandoned jail. Professional ghost hunter Richard Crow says that Dillinger was brought to Crown Point for security reasons.
Well, this was the seat of the county, and of course this was considered an escape-proof jail of that era. And Dillinger, who had quite a reputation of being able to escape from traps and escape from jails, had to be brought somewhere like this.
We've heard a lot of reports of this jail being haunted. Is any of that true?
The caretaker here has heard strange sounds at night. Of course, jails as a whole do usually have a reputation for being haunted places. You can imagine all the trauma that the prisoners would have gone through over the years. There must be an awful lot in the way of psychic impressions here in this jail. This was the most secure section of the jail. This is where the most hardened criminals would have been kept. People like John Dillinger. And this is Dillinger's cell.
Richard, were there any reports of John Dillinger's ghost actually inhabiting this cell?
Well, the sounds that have been heard here at night are quite curious because people have heard cell doors opening and slamming and a few footsteps. And there's nowhere to hide at night. And I've run off looking for them, and the nights I was here looking for the ghosts, found no one.
So what does that suggest?
That the ghost of John Dillinger may well be reenacting his last big event here at the Crown Point Jail before leaving the area for his last few months at large.
Dillinger's last big event was a daring escape from this allegedly escape-proof jail. Popular legend has it that he used a fake gun made of either wood or soap and blackened with shoe polish to capture and disarm several guards. Another theory is that Dillinger's lawyer bribed an Indiana judge into smuggling a real gun into the jail.
Richard, was Dillinger a big movie buff?
Dillinger was into gangster movies, surprisingly enough, and of course here was Manhattan Melodrama, the gangster flick of the 1934 season.
Sure.
The Biograph Theater on Chicago's North Side looks the same as it did the day it saw Dillinger's demise.
This is such a public place. He must have been wanted all over the country. Why here?
As public enemy number 1, he knew he was being watched, and yet he flaunted it. And he showed up here on the north side of Chicago at the Biograph, and this was John Dillinger's last seat.
So, this is the alley where it all happened, huh?
This is Dillinger's alley where John Dillinger was gunned down after leaving the Biograph Theater.
Did he see the FBI when he came out?
The FBI were waiting here in the alley on a fire escape across the street. They closed in and shot Dillinger down right here in the mouth of the alley.
Now, there have been reports of people seeing Dillinger's image in here.
Dillinger's ghost is widely talked about here in the Lincoln Park area, and it's described as a bluish-gray, silhouette-shaped form. It reenacts the last split seconds of life of the desperate man. The ghost comes running, is seen tripping, falling, hitting the pavement, just as John Dillinger did on that night 51 years ago.
In spite of the fatal shot, the Hoosier hoodlum ran into the alley, but fell with 2 more bullets searing into his body.
50 years after his death, John Dillinger's legend lives on. Tales of his crimes and daring have inspired many Hollywood movies, but they also make for a good old-fashioned ghost story or two.
What makes the story even more mysterious is that the autopsy report on the dead man said that his eyes were brown. John Dillinger's eyes were blue. This is an old safe deposit vault that they had to drop down a floor once because they couldn't get it out of the bank. The door itself is 15 tons, and the patent on the door dates from 1877. I think this would have given Dillinger a little trouble. Stay with us, we'll be right back.
What is this?
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the show. Happy Thursday and happy Halloween to you. We're giving you Halloween at night early tonight. Yes. We are here in Carroll County at a haunted house that benefits the Sykesville Volunteer Fire Department. I'm Jeff Pilot.
And I'm Donna Hamilton, special Halloween show, and we have a very spooky story for you. It was once upon a time, around the turn of the century, the publisher of the old Baltimore American newspaper had a special monument made to go on his grave.
His name was General Felix Angus, and over the years, the legends grew about this statue on his grave. They said that at midnight her eyes would open and glow in the dark, and that she would even come to life.
They called her Black Aggie. It became a rite of passage for teenagers over the years to visit Black Aggie. It started back in the 1930s and continued until they were forced to take her away.
We're going to take you back to a spooky night, pretty much like tonight, but back to 1957. There were a couple of friends. They were guys, Bob and Chip, best friends. They were best friends until this night, anyway.
Chip, how you doing?
Hey.
Hey. What's happening? All right.
Too much.
It was right before Halloween. It was a Thursday night, and Chip called. Said there was a party. A lot of great-looking chicks from some of the high schools, including ours.
Yeah, it was one of those chilly October nights, you know, right around Halloween. We used to do this every now and then to Bob. You know, he was a sucker for it. So I picked him up, told him about a great party. Everybody.
A lot of chicks?
Yeah, a million of them.
Let's get something to eat. I want a hot dog.
Come on, you want to go up Miller's?
Around the corner. Let's go.
All right.
While we were there, he started some kind of crazy story about a guy squeezing, gripping people.
He's nuts. Guess what? He's gotten a guy, they go to the grocery stores, he grips them. He go to get the garbage, he grips them. Whatever chore they got, they get gripped. And you used to knock them. And you could be next, baby.
Oh, no, I don't want him near me. Hey, I just want to go to a party. Come on, let's get out of here.
All right, come on.
We left Miller's. We're riding down Racerstown Road, listening to rock and roll on the car radio. I noticed we weren't going to the party. I started getting scared.
Play the party? I know what you're doing.
Black Aggie, they say scared to death.
But that didn't stop other teenagers from visiting the gravesite. In fact, it became so popular they finally had to take it out of Druid Ridge Cemetery. It was given to the Smithsonian, and that's where we found it, as sinister and haunting as ever.
And here she is, sitting in what amounts to a sculpture junkyard at the National Museum of American Art in Washington, where curator George Gurney is now the keeper of the legend.
It has an aura of mystery to it. You can't answer the questions, you know, to give an element of mystery of something that can't be answered, and that's what death is in a way.
Aggie wasn't always here. When she first came to the Smithsonian, she sat out in the courtyard. But according to one of the guards, her ability to move people to strange behavior continued.
Well, we had a guy that used to come in the courtyard here at the Portrait Gallery of American Art, and he used to adore grief. And so he would, like, worship grief. He would do a lot of ceremonies, things like this, and he'd rub her and kiss her and hug her.
Gilbert Sandler is a columnist for the Evening Sun, a chronicler of such Baltimoreana. He says Aggie was capable of almost anything.
A favorite legend was that if you sat in her lap, you watched for her to either scowl or smile, and if you got a smile while your romance was going to go well, usually you got a scowl.
If Aggie really is haunted, it might be due to the fact that she's a copy, and not a very good one at that. This is a different statue. General Agnes commissioned another sculptor to copy this famous statue by American sculptor Augustus St. Gaudens. Baltimore's Black Aggie wasn't even made from a mold. It's a freehand copy. Who knows, maybe that made her angry. What's the future for Black Aggie? Will this be her final resting place?
Who knows? I don't think so, no. It'll get moved around. Maybe it'll move around.
Oh, by the way, our friend Bob Litwin survived his night with Aggie.
I didn't go out of the house for weeks after that, but you know, it's funny how guys change. Chip and I stayed friends for 30 years after that night. In the back of my mind, though, I always wanted to get back at Chip for that night. And one day, I'm going to get back. I'm going to get even. One day.
And so the legend lives on. You know, the statue is not going to be in storage forever.
No, and they do last for centuries, so perhaps Baltimore's Black Aggie has a little more haunting to do.
We're visiting the haunted house of the Sykesville Volunteer Fire Department.
Hope you'll stay with us. When we come back, we're going to take you to meet a real live Dracula.
It was bad enough that the bugs came out of the coffin, but then the sun comes out, hits his body, and melts him. Ugh.
I heard that's just a myth, that real vampires could walk around in the daytime.
Real vampires. Hey, listen, it was a gross movie, and I loved it. was nice meeting you. Don't let the vampires get you.
Don't worry. They won't get me. Night.
The vampires won't get you, huh? On a spooky night like this, all alone, anything can be out there waiting for you. Wild animals, muggers, or yeah, even vampires. After all, what do you really know about vampires? Vampires, the evil undead who rise to drink the blood of the living. What most of us know about vampires comes from Hollywood. The most famous vampire character is, of course, Dracula. He's been portrayed countless times by many actors. We owe our conception of Dracula to this man, Bram Stoker, who wrote the now famous novel in the 1890s. But people believed in vampires long before that. In fact, the name Dracula means son of the devil, and in 15th century Europe there lived such a man.
Vlad Tepes, Dracula, otherwise known as the Berserker, the bloodthirsty monster.
Founder and president of the Dracula Society of Maryland, Thomas Schellenberger.
Vlad Tepes was a very vicious man. His favorite form of execution was impalement on a wooden stake.
They say Vlad had more than 500,000 people murdered, enemies and friends alike, and often for his lunchtime entertainment.
Well, it might be stated that while Dracula's enemies were impaled on a stake, he would dine because he enjoyed seeing the agony and the horrible infliction that he had brought about on these poor people.
Pretty heavy stuff, huh? Well, guess what? There's more.
A century after Vlad the Impaler, the vicinity of Transylvania became home for another rather warped personality. Her name was Elizabeth Bathory, but this noblewoman soon became infamous as the Blood Countess.
She had over 600 females killed. She believed that by bathing in their blood, it would keep her skin young and beautiful.
Oh, you're not worried, are you? The Blood Countess couldn't still be looking for beautiful young victims, could she? They say vampires live forever. And the legend says vampires can shapeshift, make themselves look like anything or anybody. And they're very clever. You never know what to expect from a vampire. Well, do you think you can run any faster? No? Oh dear.
Told you vampires are very clever, remember? I hope you've enjoyed this evening's entertainment. Maybe next time we'll talk about werewolves. Or maybe you'll find out all by yourself.
What do you think? Dracula?
I believe. You know, they say Dracula comes out on Halloween night. Be careful tomorrow night, kids.
Wonderful haunted house out here in Sykesville. Big one, too. Takes about 30 minutes to go through.
It's $3. I say it's worth it. Here's how you get here. 70 west to the Marriottsville Road exit. You go right. That's north. 3 miles. You go over a new bridge. You look for the signs.
Right here. No trouble to find it all.
You gotta, like, As a matter of fact, I do have a light here.
Right.
Can I give you a light? What are you going to do with a light?
I'm going to burn an old wicked woman over here.
Ooh,
What?
A little barbecue.
Stay with us when we come back. Karen Tate has some Halloween tips. And finally, the ghost walk takes us inside. Oh, our guide. Come
Hi,
this way.
Follow her.
Follow you.
Well, this is part of the ghost. Wasn't scared.
Me either. That's a good Halloween costume. I like that. I may dress up as him this Halloween.
Is that what you're going to be?
In the chains.
Well, it's Thursday night, so Karen Tate is here with her weekend guide.
Absolutely. She has some tips on where you can get a wonderful costume and
where you can wear it.
Trick or treat. Hi, I'm Karen Tate, and there will be a lot happening for Halloween in Baltimore this weekend. Here at the Westminster Church on Halloween evening from 6 to 9 p.m. You can tour the famous catacombs
and see me, Frank the Body Snatcher, and learn how I used to help the doctors at Davidge Hall. I was a grave robber. I supplied Davidge Hall with corpses for the medical students. Davidge Hall was also in the business of supplying subjects to other medical schools. For $50, I would supply the subject.
I'm going to have trouble sleeping after this, and if you are too, how about a midnight stroll? This historic landmark is the Shot Tower, one part of the Halloween Insomniac Tour. But be careful, you might run into Scotty, the ghost of the tower.
The tour begins at 1:30 a.m. Halloween night and includes stops at some of Baltimore's famous landmarks, ending with the rising of the sun at the top of the world.
You must make reservations, so contact Baltimore Rent-A-Tour for more information. Now, if you've waited till the last minute to get a costume, don't be frightened.
The Looking Glass, located on North Packer Street, is the place for you last-minute trick-or-treaters. They have thousands of items on hand, including wigs, makeup, masks, and costumes. And best of all, they're open until midnight tomorrow and 7 p.m. on Halloween.
If you'd like to mix authentic history with scary fun and just plain excitement, you must take the Fort Howard Dungeon Tour.
This favorite haunt tells the story of the Battle of North Point and the killing of British General Ross. Tour dungeons filled with ghosts, goblins, and mummies. But beware, this is one frightening experience. Here are some other haunted houses near you.
Come a little closer. Taste my bloody brew.
They call it General Ross's Revenge, and he'll be here tonight through Saturday starting at 7 p.m., along with traitorous soldiers, Halloween haunts, ghouls, and some very special guests. And by the way, watch out for the kids this weekend. Have a safe and fun Halloween weekend. I'm Karen Tate for Evening Magazine.
Well, thank you, Karen. Sounds like a fine Halloween ahead, doesn't it?
Donna, look at this. Look at all this.
These people are not sleeping.
I think somebody's been here before us.
It's been some sort of massacre or something.
No, not the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Oh my God. Oh, she's dead meat. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Cuddle up for a chilly evening with our evening Halloween poll. It's Fright Night, and we're doing it upright when we peek at America's all-time favorite horror films. Then, from flying saucers to Bigfoot monsters, what unexplained happening is most likely to exist? Don't look behind you. And congratulations, you're the winner of an all-expense-paid trip to Transylvania. Will you go? Find out if America is really the home of the brave.
Happy Halloween, everyone.
The goblins and ghosts know where you live, and they're coming to your house tonight. Happy Halloween, everyone. I'm Jeff Pineland.
And I'm Donna Hamilton. Our Friday poll show tonight, finding out your views on the unexplained. All about phenomena, from ghosts to Ghostbusters to psychics. A lot of popular movies lately about the supernatural.
Not only lately, but some of the most popular movies of all time have been horror movies. So we began the poll tonight asking you, what's your favorite flick of all time?
What's playing at the Nightmare Theater? Why, your favorites, of course. Come inside, if you dare, as we count down America's favorite fright films.
Strike terror, Lord, into the beast.
9% of you thought Linda Blair had a certain chilling charm in The Exorcist. Another 9% of you voted for Freddy Krueger, that dream walking from A Nightmare on Elm Street, parts 1 and 2, and soon parts 3 and 4.
Would you like one of my flowers?
There's another tie for our number 3 horror film. 11% of you gave a vote of confidence to an old friend. Parts of Frankenstein may seem tame now, but 50 years ago he jolted audiences with the same voltage those nasty aliens did this summer. Psycho, the simple story of a boy and his mom, is second billed at the Nightmare Theater with 16% of the vote, and top-lining Ghostbusters. Here's one movie that features demonic possession and rampaging spirits and super monsters and a whole gang of psychos.
Well, who would make up a story like that?
Funny you should ask. The original script was the brainchild of former Saturday Night Live funny man Dan Aykroyd.
And the light is green, trap is clean.
And I just figured, wouldn't it be great to do a science fiction, ghost-oriented comedy using the premises that Abbott and Costello and the Bowery Boys used in some of their ghost movies, and all the special effects that are available here in the realm today.
Dan and director Ivan Reitman called upon special effects wizard Richard Edlund to breathe life into their ghosts.
We had lots of conversations with Dan and Ivan Reitman, of course, who was directing and producing the picture, in terms of getting all of these characters to look like something. And of course, you start with sketches and paintings and then little maquettes of characters.
From there, Richard and his boss film artists worked their special film magic.
We're doing the same thing Houdini did in a lot of ways. We're trying to trick the audience into seeing something, and to believe that they're seeing something that they're really not seeing.
Tonight, as a special Halloween treat, Richard tipped some of his Ghostbuster tricks. Remember this grub-gobbling ghoul?
This, we decided to use a guy in a suit. We had a talented mimist who was on staff here in the Creature Shop, and he had the ability to move his body and create a certain comedy with just his motions.
From small problems to big ones, how do you get an audience to buy a 112-foot-tall marshmallow man? On Saturday morning TV, it's easy, but in a blockbuster film?
This was something that we were paranoid about all the way throughout the film, because this was the character that was going to be stomping down Broadway on his way to Columbus Circle. The idea of that was just so outrageous that everybody was worried whether it was going to work.
The solution was a movie standard, the man in the rubber suit, with cables to animate the eyes and mouth. Another stock-in-trade movie secret, stop-motion animation, was used to bring these terrifying devil dogs to life.
I thought that it would be a good idea for this dog to have be almost like an Arnold Schwarzenegger type of musculature and look really brawny and strong. And we built two different sizes, one which was about a foot and a half long when Rick and Sigourney transformed into the dogs. Those were little miniature dogs there.
Okay, so she's a dog.
Let me tell you something. With ticket sales topping $200 million nationwide, a spin-off cartoon series for Saturday morning, and even a namesake breakfast cereal, can Ghostbusters 2 be far off? Well, not too far.
Dan has written a script, and it's a completely off-the-wall idea, of course, since Dan came up with it.
Ghost set to rampage again in 1988? Thank the spirits there will still be someone we can call.
I think you better call.
Well, this much we do know about Ghostbusters. A new script has been written, and all the original cast members from the original film have agreed they would do a new Ghostbusters. What we don't know is why it takes so long to get it done. Happy Halloween, everyone. We've all seen the headlines, four-headed space monsters and little green men from Mars and all that. Up next on Evening Magazine's poll show, we'll ask you, what do you think is most likely to exist?
Let's face it, we've all seen those tabloid newspaper headlines about flying saucers and the Loch Ness Monster and Bigfoot at the checkout counter. But the question is, do any of those things really exist except at the checkout counter? We asked you, America.
Which of these phenomena is most likely to exist? 12% of you say the Loch Ness Monster. Nessie, as the monster is affectionately called, is said to live in the Loch of Loch Ness, set in the wild and scenic Scottish Highlands. The legend of the monster begins circa 565 AD, when a Christian missionary wrote the first account of this 15-foot creature who had reportedly killed a man. Since then, famous photographs have been taken, and artists have pieced together clues from eyewitness accounts. Nessie has been encountered in person 18 times in the last 45 years by Alex Campbell, who can even describe how the monster breathes.
That's exactly what it sounded like.
Most recently, in 1977, this 8mm film was taken by a shaky young couple named Peter and Gwen Smith. That same summer, halfway around the world at our own Lake Champlain, Nessie's cousin, Champ, appeared. What's going on here? Scientists say the last dinosaur of this kind died 60 million years ago. Not so, say the locals.
Well, I've been hunting and fishing on this lake for about 45 years, and I've never seen anything like that. And then when I was in the service, I've seen whales and porpoises and sharks, and it didn't look like that, what was out there.
What is it about these serene settings that brings out the beast and the unexplained? We are now in British Columbia, where the search is on for Bigfoot. 19% of Americans believe that Bigfoot is likely to exist. Every school kid has heard of this elusive creature the early American Indians called Sasquatch, which means wild or hairy man. You may have seen this still photograph of the mystery ape man that was taken in Northern California in 1967. But you may not have seen these 1962 home movies, purportedly of a Bigfoot at home. More recently, there have been a number of sightings in the Michigan area by people such as Wayne King.
I've encountered the animal. In 1978, I encountered two of the animals in Tuscola region. It was an offspring and a large adult.
Wayne keeps plaster casts of Bigfoot prints and droppings found near the prints. He was so fascinated by his encounter that he set up an information center allowing other people to report their encounters. Bigfoot left George Proctor dumbfounded.
I felt just like I had needles and pins all through me. And it was really kind of an exciting thing because I'd never seen anything of this nature.
Sandra Kappa met Bigfoot staring down at her from over the top of a 7-foot-tall pine tree.
Yeah, I don't come out here anymore.
My God, it changed shape.
Nothing captures the unexplained imagination of the American public as much as unidentified flying objects. Life from outer space coming to visit us Earthlings is too exotic to resist. 40% of Americans believe UFOs may be for real, and a third of you said you would actually go with aliens if you were given a choice. There are many photographs and some footage of unidentified flying objects, but no other pictorial evidence has created such a stir as these images shot off the coast of New Zealand from an airplane in 1978. A bright light in the night sky might not seem impressive, but it is the only case of a UFO that was seen by several people, picked up on radar, and photographed on several thousand frames of 16mm color film. Most interesting is the fact that the pattern of movement and the density of light displays intelligence, according to Bruce Maccabee, a physicist who has spent over a year analyzing the film.
Such a regular flashing of a light implies intelligent control. We could find no conventional explanation. That removes it beyond the pale of science, I'm afraid.
So once again, that's 12% of you who can't imagine that there really is a Loch Ness Monster. 19% do not wince at the idea of the ape man, Bigfoot. And if percentages could will them into existence, flying saucers might fill the night sky.
I don't know about flying saucers or the Loch Ness Monster, but I do believe in ghosts. What? I do. I have smelled a ghost. I have. I stayed in an old country inn a couple of years ago. I was in my room and packing. I smell the flowers, but
And now it's trick or trivia time. What famous American magician died on this Halloween night many years ago? That's right, Harry Houdini, probably our most famous magician ever. He always said he'd come back. You think that's possible? Here's a not too completely serious investigation of that question.
This woman decided to hold a funeral for herself while she was still alive. For people who are really dead, it's not so easy to get out and socialize. But 40% of Americans believe the dead can contact the living. In movies like Poltergeist 2, the dead come back as special effects. People who study this kind of thing in real life say the dead come back during seances, dreams, or sometimes a house with a history of bad luck. Parapsychologist Carrie Gaynor.
We'll quite often come across a murder or a suicide, and the sudden violent death seems to be the most consistent denominator when engaging in a haunted house research. It doesn't have to be murder or suicide. It could be a quick death, person falling down a stairs, something that the person wasn't prepared for. But we'll quite often come across this as the common denominator.
Ghost chaser Barry Taft says he encountered some violence of his own when a seance he was conducting was interrupted.
I was attacked by a large, heavy-set man that we presumed had just walked in the house from outside. It took 5 heavy men to beat this man off me. And as this man fell to the floor, he had torn my shirt, torn my jacket, and has almost strangled me. This image of a man just dissolved. Now, this was in front of 14 people. But beyond the dissolving, it metamorphosized or changed into one of the people who was with us at that seance.
A seance is also part of the legend of one of our greatest magicians.
Madame Houdini is going to try to contact her dead husband, the great Harry Houdini. You know, he promised to contact her within 10 years' time through a certain code, if such a thing were possible.
The 1930s film The Mystic Circle Mystery tells about one of the more famous real-life efforts by the living to contact the dead, and vice versa. Just before his death on Halloween in 1926, escape artist Harry Houdini told his wife to remember the message, "Rosabelle, believe." If she heard it after he died, she would know it was Houdini. Houdini never did contact his wife. He apparently wasn't able to escape from the grave. Even though 40% of us believe the dead can contact the living, most would agree that it doesn't happen every day. Consider the town of Colma, California, population 731, living, more than 1 million dead. This is the cemetery capital of the West, and if the dead could talk, here's where you'd expect the neighbors to call up and complain about the noise. Well, except for an occasional non-supernatural footstep or shovel, it's all quiet. Too quiet.
Well, Coma is just one of those places you don't want to be on Halloween. How about spending a weekend in a famous corner of Romania? It's called Transylvania. It really exists, and it's the legendary home of Dracula.
I am Dracula. I bid you welcome.
Would you accept an all-expense-paid trip to Transylvania? Well, before you decide, let's take a look at what might be in store for you. Transylvania is in Romania, and you can get there on the Orient Express. One of the most popular stops is Sighișoara, the birthplace in 1431 of Prince Vlad Dracul, the real-life model for Dracula the vampire. History has it that Dracul wasn't a very nice prince. To defend his crown, he killed more than 20,000 Bulgarians and Turks by driving sharpened poles through their bodies. This earned him the nickname Vlad the Impaler. He left a forest of corpses and a bloody mess, and he also left a legend that probably inspired our popular notion of Dracula's strange drinking habits.
This is very old wine. I hope you will like it. Aren't you drinking? I never drink. Why?
On our recent visit to the real-life Transylvania, we found it to be creepy and damp, and it felt as though it had been that way for at least 500 years. So, now that you know what Transylvania is like, would you accept an all-expense-paid trip there?
Come here.
76% of the men we polled said yes, but 42% of the women gave us a blood-curdling no. Well, if you change your mind and do decide to go, make sure you come prepared.
Let's say you had a chance next week to go visit Transylvania, would you? I would. Why not? The dead cannot hurt you. It's the living you got to watch out for. I think I'll go there now. Stay with us. Dot and I will be right back.